Okay, let's continue. I'm going to throw together a quick edit for you just so that you can see how the process works. We're still in the Banff event, but we're going to change that. We've got a new one up here called Grand Prix Mike. I was the cameraman. I had another camera operator working on this, but I didn't put her clips in. I just chose a very few clips as an example for you. So I'm going to go into the Grand Prix event by clicking on it and see all the footage. Now, you may notice that the labeling of this footage and the in and out points have already been established just to make this quicker. I showed you how to do in and out points before. You can always go back and review. It's pretty easy. Just hit I for in and O for out when you're watching the clip from the event area. Okay, down here we're still seeing the Banff project because I haven't created a new project for this video about artists. So let's do that now. I'm just going to go to the File menu for it, go to New, over to Project, and start a new project. I'm going to name this Grand Prix. And it's going to go into the event Grand Prix. I don't want it to go into Banff. I want it to go into the Grand Prix event. And now we see in the events area, there's our project. And down on the timeline, well, it's totally empty because we haven't started yet. Now, the first thing that we're going to want to do is bring in some photographs. Now, I already have it set up over here in the photos area. It will show you everything that's in your iPhotos program, all the different photos you have, and in this case I've got a picture that I took as a freeze frame from the footage itself of a palette with paint on it and a hand holding a paintbrush. And I thought that looked pretty good, but I didn't want it to look exactly like a photograph, so I took it in what's called a graphic synthesizer, another program that I have, and made it look a little bit more like a painting. So I'm going to drag that in first and foremost to help create a title. And now we can see it on the larger display here. It's a nice looking, graphical looking thing. Looks like a painting. It's even got canvas texture applied to it. Putting the titles over this might be a little bit difficult because it's so bright. So I'm just going to take down the opacity a bit, and over here in the inspector area I can just drag this and you'll see that the image starts to get darker and darker. That's good. Now I can put some titles over it. I'm going to stretch this out to 6 seconds. Make a nice 6 second. That gives about a second for it to that's close enough. 602 is good. Maybe I better make it all a little bit bigger down here. I'll just hit the minus button. Now I can see that a little larger. Maybe I can actually make it exactly 6. There we go. 6 seconds. I will have a dissolve to fade up from black. I'll drag that over right now. So now on this screen we see it fading up. The next thing I need is the title. Now I've already found a good titling mode here. There's so many of them to choose from. It takes a long time to go through them and decide which one you'd really like to use. So I did that earlier. And the one that I chose is called, wherever it is, Sideways Drift. Sideways Drift looks like this. It's kind of neat. So I'm going to drag that over and just put it above our graphic, giving the graphic time to, oops, not that far over, giving the graphic time to fade up from black, and then the title comes in. Of course, I don't want it to say title and subtitle, and I don't like that font too much for this, so I'm going to change everything. So let's go and find a good font and retype. Well, actually, I'll retype it first. And the people who sponsor this program are the Phoenix Art Workshop. And that's a little big. I'm going to make that a lot smaller, but then again, I'm going to change the font, so maybe I should do that before I go any further. There's a font that I have in my font collection called Impact. It's very bold, so I'm going to use that. You will choose whatever fonts you want when you're making up your graphics, of course. Let me do the same with this one. I have to type the name first. It's going to be, and I'm going to put this all in uppercase. Alright, that's obviously a lot too big. We'll change the font first. And I'm going to make it the same font. There it is. If it only stops here for me. Sometimes it gets going, you can't stop it easily. Alright, Impact. There we go. Actually, that's not so bad. Kind of like that. That's a good size. Now, I'm parked right about in the middle of this animation, so that's about the center of the animation. I find that it's not exactly where I'd like it on the screen, though, so I'm just going to grab it. Oops, I don't want to just grab one of them. That would be the wrong thing to do. I'll use the translate tool, I think. There we go, and translate the entire thing. So it's kind of off-center as far as it was designed, but it looks a little bit better this way. Okay, I'm going to turn the translate tool off again, just to make it easier to work with each line individually. And I'm going to change the colors. Now, last time I tried to do this, I had a bit of an issue with it, but let's just see what happens this time. If this one is in yellow, it's not working. Again, of course. Let's just see. Let's try this one first then. This particular titling thing, I sometimes think I have to do that line first and then the top line, but I'm not sure. I'm going to close the color wheel too, because I think that might have something to do with my problem, and reopen it. Make that one yellow. Okay, that one worked. Good. Now, while I've still got this one highlighted, I'm going to put a drop shadow on it. That's going to make it stand out a little bit more, or there is a drop shadow already defined. Oops, show it. But it's not standing out well enough, so I'm going to turn up the opacity to 100. Turn the blur down, so this is going to be pretty sharp looking shadow. And the distance. And that's pretty good. And I'm going to go down here and do the same thing with the second line. Turn the opacity up, turn the blur down, change the distance of it. There we go. Now all that stands out pretty good. So now what we have so far is a nice title sequence. That's it. And then we would dissolve away to the first live shot. Now, if you did see a little bit of blurring when I played that back, you'll notice the brown line here that's vanishing. That's because it is rendering things for the computer so that it can now play back quite smoothly. Still a little bit of a blur dip there. If you see that sometimes, don't worry about it. When you do a final render out to a finished product, all that will be gone, and you'll just have a nice clean looking project. All right, now how this got broken up into two shots down here, I do not know. I don't understand. Something happened. Stretch this thing out to the 6 seconds that it's supposed to be. Now, if I line it up with the title, it should come to 6. No, it isn't going to, actually. The title goes away first. Okay. Okay, there's 6 seconds right there. Perfect. I could bring this out a bit more so that it just scoots away as the dissolve is going to happen. All right, now, next, we go up to our clips. And you'll notice that I've numbered them. I wanted to make this easy, so I'm just going to highlight a few of them. And I could do this. I could put the cursor over until it turns into a hand, grab it, and pull it down. This is the way I typically used to do all my editing until I found the magic of a keyboard equivalent that will put a clip at the end of whatever other clips you have on the timeline, and that's just hitting the letter E. So I'll just keep highlighting and hitting the letter E until I'm finished with this sequence. I think that, no, there's one more. All right. Now I've got this predefined sequence here that I've put down on the timeline. I'm going to put dissolve between each of those. We don't always use a dissolve between everything, but this is kind of a montage kind of looking thing, so I'm just going to do that. Drag it in. Just drag it in. Okay, so let's just drop them in. And have I got any more? No, that's it. All right, so now I have this nice little, starts out with the title, and then dissolves into my shots. Now the nice thing about the audio being with the clip the way it is if you put a dissolve in, it also crossfades the audio a bit, so we're not getting any hard edit sounds in the soundtrack. All right, now about this time I should maybe go get some music. It's probably in iTunes. So under the musical note icon here, we'll find our iTunes file, and I'm going to find one that's called Quagmire. There it is, Quagmire 60. Now this has absolutely nothing to do, as far as I know, with Family Guy. This is from a library that I own of music that I have paid for the rights to use. So it is something I'm allowed to use. I'm putting it in there. Now, I remember when I first tried this out, I didn't care for the way it started. There's where I want it to start, right when the guitar begins there. Now, if I hit B on the keyboard, it will change the cursor into the shape of a razor blade, B for blade. We can cut this clip into two clips. And now I'm going to push the A key on the keyboard to get the cursor back into the regular form. I'm going to highlight the first bit here that I don't want and just hit the backspace key or the delete key and take it away. Now I'm going to move that down so that it all starts at the beginning of the program. Let's have a listen here. All right, right about there, the music is too loud. We want to be able to hear what that fellow's saying. The rest of it's just crowd noise. It's okay. But when he says what he says, we want to be able to hear him. So here's how we fade the audio down. First of all, we'll start the fade before his clip begins. Right about there in the previous clip. Go up and with the music highlighted down here on the timeline, we can now go up to the inspector and find it. Now there's this volume control here. You'll notice when I hover over that area that right up here there's a triangle that comes into view, and I'll click on that. That's giving us what we call a keyframe. But nothing happens here yet. We want it to fade between here and another keyframe. So let's just go up to where he starts to speak to make sure that we get the next keyframe in the right place. Okay, I'll just run that back by using the J key to go backwards. And the space bar to stop. I guess by about here that should be down as low as we want it to go. Now I don't have to hit this triangle again. I can if I want. But I don't have to. All I do is start changing something and it'll automatically create a keyframe. And you see down on the timeline, the volume change happens right in front of you. You can see it. All right. Now let's go back before we do the fade and just have a look at the last part of that previous clip, and then we'll go in and hear Mark speaking.
Welcome, everybody. Great to see you. Thank you for bringing the good weather with you.
All right, I even got the guy walking by going woohoo, so we can hear that. There is another shot coming up where I want that music. I'm going to bring the music back up again. Actually, I changed my mind. I think I'm going to take the music out about here. And now here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to see if I can do something fancy here. It may not work all that well, but you'll get the idea. And if you play around with it enough, you can get it perfect with this piece of music. Some music that you use, you'll be able to do this with. Some you won't. I'm going to go back to the blade tool, cut it right here. I'm going to go up to the end of the piece of music, because I know up to the end there's an ending here. It goes like this. Right about there, I guess. Cut that. Use the A key to go back to the regular cursor. Take this clip right out. So now we got to move this down. This is always a bit of a challenge. Doesn't always want to go properly, but now we can mate it up with the end of the other one. We'll see how it works first off. Yeah, it doesn't work all that well. I think, let me see, I'll drag this one out a little further. Now notice the way that when we highlight it and the cursor turns to this kind of a shape. When you're highlighted this clip, it means you can extend this clip. So I'll just grab it and pull it. Now the other one will drop down out of the way. I could move it up to the end of this one, or I could see how it's going to work out right here, but I think it's in the wrong place. Not bad, not bad. Maybe it needs just a little extra tweaking. I don't know if it needs to go all the way, though. That's good enough for now. As I say, you may tweak that again a little later. Now, do I want to bring the volume up here again a bit? Maybe I do. So let's put another keyframe in. And then bring the volume back to almost normal. -1's good. And this one will also have to come up and put it back to the beginning of the clip. There, now it brings the entire, this entire clip up in volume. I'm going to let this shot play out. It's a pretty shot. Without any kind of sound except what's there on location. Now, you'll notice that when we had the music clip a lot longer, Final Cut needs something in the video line as well. And it just puts a black bar there. I'm going to take that out because it will get in the way later. So I just hit delete, and there she goes. Now I'm going to find my next clip. Okay, where were we? All right, here's the start of the event. It's called number 7, Air Horn. I'll hit the E key and put that on the end. Once again, I guess I'll put a dissolve in. We'll stop using dissolves here in a moment. Now that's a very short clip. She will now turn her head and start talking to somebody, and I don't want that, so this is going to be just a really short clip. But I did want to have a little bit of a title there. So let's put a little superimposed lower third title up. And I'm just going to use this particular title. It just blurs its way in. That's all it does. It blurs its way in. And I'm going to have that start just right after the dissolve. Well, it didn't work, did it? Okay. Better. And I'll have it go away by putting a dissolve in later. So right now, yeah, that's fine. Let's change that now so that it has something proper to say. And oops. And I'm just going to write ready, set, go. With some exclamation marks. And we're going to change that. We're going to leave it as Helvetica though, but we're going to make it bold oblique. Bring the size up. Change the color. Face. Face is the color. We hit show. That drops it down, so we can now click on the color. And we'll just make it that same yellow color we used before. And I'm also going to, I guess, translate it down to where I want it. Oh, and I suppose I should put a drop shadow with it. Might be kind of nice. So let's go back to the inspector. We'll click on drop shadow. You can see it already puts one in, but I might tweak that a bit as well. No blur, opacity. I'm big on having them really bold, these shadows, so, and just make the distance a little bit. All right, different. That's good. Now we're still in the middle of the blur. That's why this looks a little out of focus over here. But when you see the animation, you'll understand. Good. That's it. That's as much as we need. We can maybe even extend that into the next shot a little bit because it is very short to read that. And the next shot is the first artist that we see actually doing anything, because now the artists have been allowed to start their engines. Now these artists got to create paintings in, I think it was 4 hours. You got a designated spot to sit in Steveston here in British Columbia, which is a beautiful fishing village. And there's spots around the town, there's spots on the docks and so forth, and at the beaches. Each artist had a special spot and sat down and for 4 hours created a painting. This guy's just starting his preliminary sketch. We'll put him in. And of course there were prizes and things like that. So, here we go. She has done that. Let me see. All right. I want another piece of music with this part. So I'm going to go and find another piece of music. And that piece of music is near Quagmire. It's called Oval Jazz. Now this is something I didn't get from a library. This is something I created myself. I can compose when I need to, and I did it for another project. I see it starts. You can tell by the waveform where it starts, and I want it to start on that shot. Now I can either edit it or I can just drag it down to the previous, hook it onto the previous shot, and then there it is. I'm going to take all the sound out of all these clips too. There's another way of doing this that I can show you here right now, so that from now on, any clip I put in will not come with the sound. There. We drop this menu, we bring in a clip. It's got the video and the audio, or just the video, or just the audio. In this case, I want just the video every time I bring a clip in from now on. So let me quickly put these together. Hit the E key again. Hit the E key again, etc., etc. There's number 12. Now number 13 is after number 14 because I wanted to switch the order of these, so I'll put number 13 in I'll put number 14 in. And I got one more that I'm going to put in as a live shot just for this demonstration. The finished edit that I eventually do might be quite different from this and certainly will be longer. But I just wanted to get some of these shots down. Now I'm not going to put any dissolves or any kind of effect, transition effect between these. These are just going to cut together. It's going to be kind of nice after all those dissolves. Okay, you get the idea, but I'm going to also start a narration track at this point. Now, I do have the narration. It wasn't ever put into iTunes, so it won't show up in the iTunes area. I just brought it in the way I would bring in any video clips. It was just sitting on my hard drive on the desktop, and I just brought it in. It's called the narration track. It's a very shortened kind of narration track, and I'm just going to throw that in somewhere and start using it. So I'll start a little bit here, maybe about there, and let's just have a bit of a listen. Phoenix Art Workshops. Well, that's not very good because the music is way too loud and the narration can't be heard. I'm going to start with the music quite low. I'm not going to bother to start at higher volume and then dip it down with a keyframe. I'm just going to start with it fairly low. I'm going to turn the narration up a bit because I notice it's not very loud at all. Let's see if we got a better mix here. Phoenix Art Workshops Grand Prix of Art is an annual event that draws artists from all over the Lower Mainland and as far... Ooh, that's still too loud. Okay, I tell you what, I'm going to leave that little bit of the event. You can see where the music comes up in volume of its own accord. It's the way it was recorded. So I will put a keyframe here. Well, actually, I should maybe move that keyframe because I want it to start fading a little early. And by the time we get to here, I will want the music to be down significantly. All right. Let's see what that sounds like. Of Art is an annual event that draws artists from all over the Lower Mainland and as far away as Washington State to compete for gifts, cash prizes, and trophies. All right, that sounds pretty good. We'll just let this narration go. There is a point at which I'm going to separate the narration. I have a couple of clips coming up here. Actually, I think there's 3 of them that you might recognize the images because in Steveston, British Columbia, which is part of Richmond, which is part of the Vancouver district, in Steveston, they have been filming Once Upon a Time for television. It's a TV show. You might have seen it. So if you recognize some of these images coming up, like Mr. Gold's Pawn Shop, all forms of painting art are valid here, with the only criteria being that each artist must paint from a designated vantage point within and around the fishing village of Steveston, and they must complete their painting within the 4 hours allotted. The village of Steveston lies at one corner of the city of Richmond, part of the Greater Vancouver area. Okay, those last 3 clips that you saw, you might have recognized some of those buildings. Steveston is Storybrooke. Anyway, we're kind of proud of that around here. Let me just separate out my soundtrack here a bit, my narration track. The village of Steveston. All right, yes, I want to get in before that, so I'm going to cut that off with the blade tool so I can make it a separate clip here at the end, and I'm going to move that clip down the line. I will also bring up the music here at this point. Within the 4 hours allotted. Okay, right about here. We always start fading the music up before the narration ends. It sounds smoother that way. And I'll just bring that volume up. I think that might be okay. Let's see. In the 4 hours allotted. All right. Now, I still don't want that narration to be said right there. I'm going to bring the music down just prior to the narration starting again. There we go. Another keyframe here. And another one here. And I've got to put a couple of graphics in. Alrighty, now the graphics, they come from my iPhoto collection again, and they're in the same event as the opening graphic was, the palette. And these are a couple of maps. Now, when you're bringing an image in from iPhoto, you just grab it and drag it to the timeline and drop it, and there it is. It's very easy to do. The narrator is going to explain exactly where this town of Steveston is. So I'm going to do a dissolve between two maps that are virtually the same, except that the second map shows where Steveston is, and I'm going to do a little animation to get us there. So let's just see what we got here. The village of Steveston lies at one corner of the city of Richmond, part of the Greater Vancouver area. That's it. Now, in order to get there, first of all, we're coming from a live shot here, and we're going to a graphic. So let's use a special effect called a page curl. I'll just go in here and find it. These are listed alphabetically, so we go down to P for page curl, and there it is. And I'm going to drag it in between the last live shot and the first bit of the graphics. The village of Steve. Now, what I don't like about that is the way it peels. I prefer to have it peel the other way. So by highlighting, making sure that the effect is highlighted, we go up to the inspector. It gives us some options, and one of them is to have it go right, go left, or customize it to go from a bottom corner or something like that. The village of Steveston lies at one... Okay, that's better. I'm going to go back up and put a dissolve between the two maps. Steveston lies at one corner of the city of Richmond. Now that's very small down in there, so I'm going to actually do a little animation so we can get in closer on Steveston. Lies at one corner of the city. Okay, first of all, I highlight this new map where I want my move to start, and I'm going to put a keyframe here under position, because I will be changing the position of the map on the screen, and also the scale. I didn't actually put a keyframe there. Okay, now it did. And then I'm going to go down where I want this effect to end. City of Richmond, part of the Greater... Okay, that'll do. And now let's make some changes. First of all, I'm going to make the changes down here on the screen itself. I'm going to use the transform button here. When I highlight it, it turns blue. You know it's active, and you see these little dots on the edges and on the corners. And that's the scale. If I grab those, I can change the scale, but it sometimes is awkward. I prefer to use the slider, and that means it won't distort. So I'm just going to make it bigger. But on the screen over here, I'm going to grab this little circle. This little circle, when we're in transform mode, is the center of our graphic, and when you grab that, you can move the graphic. So there, I'm going to put Steveston right about there. So now it's more or less in the middle of our screen, and then we'll play that back and see how it works. Let's go back to the last live shot and have a look. The village of Steveston lies at one corner of the city of Richmond, part of the Greater Vancouver area. There we go. And that's about as far as I'm going to go with this demonstration. I'm going to take off the rest of the music. And there we go. Now let's play it back and see what we've got. If I go all the way to the beginning again, let's check it out.
Welcome, everybody. Great to see you. Thank you for bringing the good weather with you. Woo-hoo.
Phoenix Art Workshop's Grand Prix of Art is an annual event that draws artists from all over the Lower Mainland and as far away as Washington State to compete for gifts, cash prizes, and trophies. All forms of painting art are valid here, with the only criteria being that each artist must paint from a designated vantage point within and around the fishing village of Steveston, and they must complete their painting within the 4 hours allotted. The village of Steveston lies at one corner of the city of Richmond, part of the Greater Vancouver area. Okay, that's our edit, and I hope you've gotten something out of this little tutorial. Final Cut Pro is a very complicated and complex program, but the basics of it are pretty simple to understand, and you get used to it, and you'll find all the different buttons and knobs and things you need in order to make your project work properly. So enjoy, and happy editing.